All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us here at the Corning Museum of Glass. Welcome to our Hot Glass Show. We have a very special demonstration for you tonight. We're also live streaming this demonstration, so I also want to welcome all of those joining us on the live stream, on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook channel. We have Bring the Heat tonight, which is a series that we've developed here at the Hot Glass Show to showcase some of our artists that work here year-round, but also to support the shops. So Michael Beahm here is going to be featured tonight. Yep, give it up for Michael Beahm. Thank you very much. And then assisting Michael is Tom Ryder. Let's give it up for Tom as well. Thank you. And I'm Katie. I'm going to narrate this process, thank you very much, any questions that you may have about this process. And if you are online and have questions as well, please let us know through the comments. Emily is going to be chatting with you, and if she doesn't know a question, even though she knows many, many answers, she can chat with me as well, and we will get those questions answered. But here we go. So we've started a little bit. I'll give you a lot of background about what's going on, about what we have in store for you tonight, and then how we got there too. So Michael, let me just run and grab a piece of paper. Michael has a design that he's really been working on and changing throughout his glass career here at not only the Corning Museum of Glass, but really many places as his career has taken him. But this design is, I wish we had the piece that he made yesterday, but he made we kind of practiced a little bit yesterday. But the shape is kind of oval. It's very similar to this one. I'll just show you this one here. So this is the shape that we're going for. The color isn't exactly like this, but we have a lot of color going on in this one as well. So we'll talk about what we have in the oven. So we have created what we call a grawl. And a grawl is essentially a cup made of different colors that then can be taken down to room temperature and then cut so that you can reveal the colors underneath some of the colors on the top. And that will reveal either you can make a design in that, you can kind of make it look like any particular thing. And Michael has chosen to make this look like ice or like a glacier. And so he's inspired by a recent trip to Antarctica where he saw lots of ice and lots of large glaciers from a ship. So this is also a vessel-oriented shape, also hinting towards that boat feature. So the cup that we have created is a lot of markings on it to look like the glacier. He took 2 or 3 different versions of blue, some alabaster, which is a little bit of a milky white color, I believe, and then the inside has white in it too to really help those colors pop. So we have the cup over there in that oven that Tom is standing next to. The stairs right there are going to help Michael get right over it so that he can stuff the bubble that he has on that pipe into that cup and basically pick that cup up with a bubble inside of it. Then we will gather more glass over the top of that, and then we will start to focus on the shape. So there's a lot of beginning process. There's a lot of work that can happen to a vessel over the course of days or sometimes even weeks that you can then add to the vessel later on or pick it up like we're about to do. So how we start this process here in-house, what you've kind of not seen so far since he started a little bit early so that we can do this within our 1 hour time. We have a furnace full of glass right in the middle of our studio. And that glass is at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. And in that furnace, we have about 1,000 pounds of it. We can gather glass out on the end of a stainless steel hollow blowpipe that has been preheated on the tip so the glass sticks to it. Then when we gather that out, we can add color to it. We can do anything we want. We can make vessels out of it. We can do all kinds of things. To make, oh wait, here comes the stuff, very important part. So he's going to stuff the bubble into this cup now. So he's going to go right over it. He's going to press it all the way down and then watch as it fills precisely and expertly. Very nicely done. He'll bring this out and then he'll put this right into the oven. Let's give him a big round of applause for that stuff. Very nice. Good. So we take that cup is in an oven that's around about 1,000 degrees. We ramp it up to about 1050 right before we pick it up and take it into that oven. So when we stuff the glass that's on the pipe, which is probably right around about 1900, 2000 degrees, it doesn't break when we attach those two glasses together. It has before. Not necessarily to anyone specific, but it can happen and has happened before. So it's good that that went really well. That's what that looks like. So look at all the work that he put into that grawl, that cup he made. We have, again, blues and whites involved in this. So whites are quite subtle. And the blues underneath that. So again, think ice, which is a perfect thought for a day like today. It's quite hot today in Corning. So that's going to look nice. Okay, so now that we have that attached to the pipe, not only is it attached to the pipe, but there's a bubble of blue glass that we've blown into the inside of that are stuffed into it. Now we're in our reheating chamber, which is 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. Same temperature as our melting furnace, but that's an empty chamber, so we can use that to work out of. We have a few sets of doors that will start to open as we create the piece. As this piece gets larger, we're going for a scale of about maybe 2 feet wide, maybe 6 or 7 inches tall. Don't quote me on that, but that's kind of what we worked on yesterday. So at this point, what Michael's goal is to clean the shape up a little bit in a sense that we're going to gather over it and we don't want to trap any bubbles when we do. So we want to smooth a lot of that texture out. The texture is what is kind of like what happens when we do what we need to do with the grawl. That's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for texture much for this. We want mostly what the color does. So grinding through that glass exposes color in those parts that we grinded through. And that's what we're looking for. So we want to kind of smooth all that texture out. So he'll bring that over to this table. This is called a marver. And he's going to roll this on the table. And that smooths that out a little bit. It's also going to marry the end of the cup to the glass on the pipe, which is good. So back and forth, just watch the... No worries. And back into the oven. He's going to do this a few more times to really smooth that out. We start with clear glass in our furnace, and it looks like this. It's little cubes, or we call them studio nuggets, or cullet. We shovel this into the furnace. This melts down, and then we can use it the next day. So if we do and when we do charge the furnace full of these, we do it at night so that we can use that glass the next day, and it's all melted at the same temperature. No cold spots. To add color to the glass, we buy our glass color from a manufacturer that makes it in a few formats, one of which is Color Bar, which is this. This stuff we get in larger bars. It depends on how much you want and how much you buy. You can chop this into smaller chunks, and then you put this in an oven so it preheats so that you can get it onto a pipe. You can't stick hot glass onto cold glass. So you heat this up into an oven, and then you get it melty. You get it malleable, and then melt it over a small bubble, and then you can overlay a bunch of those colors, and that's what he did to make the layering of that cup. So he overlaid a light blue, a dark blue, some white, and then cut through all of that. He's made a couple of examples, kind of examples for himself, some practice runs of this, and they definitely look like ice. It's very impressive, very exciting. So right now we're letting it cool. At this point, we want to let the inside of the bubble set up so that when we go back into the furnace to reheat it, we get a lot of heat, mostly heating the inside or the outside of the bubble. So just the outside moves, and we don't have to keep kind of mulling over the inside. So we want that inside to stay structural, heat the outside, and smooth that down. Are there any questions so far? Okay, you just let me know. Yes? Yeah, how do we know what time, or like when is it time to go back into the furnace? Is it the color? It's mostly, it depends on what we're heating the glass up for. But a lot of it has to do with the experience that we have and then how that relates to what we're working on, especially. For that move, we kind of cooled it down, and then we're going to go reheat it. We cooled it down extra so the outside would reheat, and that's all just kind of guessing. We don't really know the temperature of the material, but that's based on his experience. He's got about 15 years of glassmaking experience. And at the very beginning, we look at the color, but we realize soon after that the color doesn't do much for us, because when we have different colors involved, the color looks different when it's hot, and it just kind of looks, a bit unreliable. If we're not relying on our experience, we're relying on the movement. So the movement is a really good judge of how hot the glass is. Yeah, good question. Glad you asked. And there was another question I saw, maybe. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Just let me know. So you can see the outside is nice and warm, and you can see the color. So for those of you here in-house and online, if you see that glow of the material, that is a good indicator that it has a lot of heat in it. It won't glow if it's not hot, but we can't really rely on that too much to control the temperature. So he'll smooth that out, then blow into the back of the pipe to make sure that the bubble is there. Make sure that that's where we want it to be. We don't want that bubble to go away or close down, and especially the beginning stages. All right. Once that's all smooth, we'll go back into our furnace and gather. And I know we'll at least get one more gather, if not two. It all just depends on, just one, okay. He said just one. Cool. Awesome. So Michael has been blowing glass for about 15 years, and he started glass making in 2010. And he was able to take a glass blowing class. When he was in high school, it was a summer class. It was about 6 weeks, and it was one day a week for 6 weeks. And that's a really great time to start learning about glass when you're kind of as young as you can, as long as you're able to work with the glass. So he started that. So he's been blowing glass for a while. So here's our next, we're going to look at, the bubble here. Looks like we do have a little bit of maybe some kiln shelf on there. So I noticed that when we pulled out the stuff cup that it was a little bit, or the grawl, that it was stuck to the holder that was holding it, which is made out of a ceramic material that can go up to 10 or 1,000 degrees or more. And sometimes that sticks into the glass, and then you have to Dremel it off. So they just Dremel that off. Since this is going to go for sale in our shops, we want that to look really nice. So we're going to get rid of any imperfections if we see them, when we see them. When you see these imperfections, when it's cold, you can't do anything to it. You can't reheat it. Sometimes you can grind things off, especially if it's maybe sharp, or if the bottom doesn't sit flat, you can grind it in the cold shop. But it's best to take care of these things now if you can. All right, so we'll cool the pipe down. The pipes, like I mentioned, are stainless steel, but about a foot away from where that glass is located is too hot for us to touch. We don't put our hands in that area for that reason. So we avoid that section of the pipe. But when we're going to go into this furnace and get a nice big gather like this, we want a bit more leverage. So watch all the glass he brings out. He can pour some of that into the bucket. I call that a strip gather. That water will quickly cool. You can see it boiling already. Great camera view. And that has all the glass we're going to need. Perfect. So back to the workbench. We're now going to start to center that hot glass and cool the outside. Put that glass where we want it to while we have the opportunity to. It's moving a little bit independently of that inside colder bubble. We allowed the glass to cool quite a bit so that we could gather over it. If you go into the furnace with glass that's moving around and you try to get more weight, more heat of that layer of glass over top, you might lose the bubble you had already in the furnace because it's so hot it'll fall into the furnace. So we let it cool quite a bit, then gather over it. And that timing of knowing when to gather over the glass, letting it cool, depends on the thickness of the material and how big of a gather you're going to get. A lot of different things, but also experience. You really want to know. With time, it comes a little bit easier. So back into our furnace. Since we have all the glass that we need, we have our growl attached and smoothed, we're now going to really focus on the shape. And this is a really, honestly, different shape than what a lot of pieces I've seen. It's available out there. So this should be pretty fun. See this come to be. So we're in that oven. We're going to start to get this really hot. So he's reheating this. That lets the heat soak into that colder core bubble. But right around now, everything's starting to move homogeneously, really, at the same temperature. He has a hose connected to the mouthpiece back there. If we step on a foot pedal, it'll operate our air compression system, which will send air through the hose into the pipe. And that will help inflate this glass so that he can be over it and watching it inflate as well as shaping it at the same time. Tom can do the same thing. Tom can blow into the back of the pipe, but this also just frees Tom up if Tom needs to do other things. It's a helpful tool. The tool in his hand is my favorite tool. It's a pad of newspaper. It's folded up, wet newspaper. We use that to shape the glass. The moisture turns into steam, and that's how that whole thing works, is because of that layer of steam. It doesn't allow the two materials to stick, and it keeps the heat away from our hands, which is very important. We're now using a torch to heat up the where we're going to put the line. So this torch is about a 2,000 degree torch. We heat that area because we want that to move more than the rest. And we want the bottom to really cool down quite a bit. So we don't want to overheat that while we're trying to get the heat that we need for this next move, so we can add extra heat with that torch. So some supplemental heat. And then back into the furnace. So Tom might jump in and help him put the line in. And also, I might jump in too. There's a lot of teamwork involved in glass making. It's very rare that you see someone working solo, but it's possible. Can be limiting, but possible. Oh, okay. All right. I'll just put that right there. Awesome. Any questions so far? Just checking in. Awesome. So he's going to roll this on the table again. He's doing this right now mostly to think ahead for the shape. When we roll on the table, we're cooling the glass down. And if we cool the tip of the bubble, we'll have more glass there when we blow it up because that part's cooler and it won't blow out and stretch when we're stretching it and blowing it out. So he'll blow into that pipe as he does that. Very nice. And then we'll go back to that torch and heat that section up again. So a little more background about Michael. After he graduated high school, he got an associate's degree in graphic design at a school in Hastings, Nebraska. So he's from Hastings, Nebraska. So shout out to his friends and family also in Hastings and the area watching him today at this moment. So after he got his associate's degree in graphic design, he decided to take a class here at the Corning Museum of Glass. He took a Bill Gutenrath class, who's our resident glassmaker at the studio. And from then, he realized he could come here and work for the summer. So after that, the year after that, he came back here and worked for Make Your Own Glass at the studio. And then after that, he did that for a little bit of time. But in 2016, he started with the ship program here at the Hot Glass Show, where we had hot shops on cruise ships. And then he was able to work on those hot shops and travel around the world. And you see where the boat began. The love of traveling by boat is something that began there for him. When that ended, after that program ended in 2018, he decided to go work for his Hastings College in his hometown of Hastings as a shop tech and in charge of the mobile unit there. So he would take a mobile unit to different to different high schools and teach glassblowing classes there too. Right now, he's creating a constriction line using the tool called a pair of jacks, and that's going to help us break that piece off the blowpipe in the future. Very important part of the process. And that's why we heated that section up, because we had to put that in at that time. So he's centering the bubble, inflating it with that footing tool there. And then he has a sleeve on his arm made of Kevlar, which is going to protect his arm from any extra heat there. This part of our skin is just a little sensitive, so it's nice to add a little added protection. We get questions a lot about why we don't wear gloves. If it depends really on the scale that we're working. If we're making, during our standard hot glass show demonstrations here at the museum, 1 to 2 gather pieces, it's really not big enough to really give off a lot of heat to our arms. But when the pieces get large like this, also when they get important, when we don't want to think about our arm hurting or even worry about it, we can put a sleeve on. We'll put gloves on. So you'll see Michael put a glove on later on when he gets closer to the piece, and then the sleeve helps him at that move too. The more glass you have, the more heat that radiates. And so also having an assistant to hold a board next to your arm helps too. Now we'll start to think about the shape. So the two can work together, turning this as he squeezes that line in. We don't really have the ability to revisit that unless we want the whole thing to get unreasonably a little bit difficult there. So it's nice to squeeze that in now. The color that you're seeing here, the white's going to represent itself well, but you're also probably seeing a little bit of green. The blues that he put into this are going to look green while it's hot. It just is. So we won't really see that beautiful blue that he worked so hard to obtain until tomorrow when the piece is at room temperature. All glass must be slowly cooled through a process called annealing. And so this piece will also be annealed, and we'll see it tomorrow. But a blue similar to this. Icy blue, glacier blue. And then back into our oven. So Michael marked the pipe on the for him, top side and bottom side. Those are markings for Tom to know when to stop turning the pipe, and we're going to let the glass fall, and we're going to flatten the sides. So Michael has a pair of cork paddles he's going to use to flatten the sides of the vessel. And Tom is going to bring the vessel over for him and then hold it for him. You can't do this one by yourself very easily. So Tom has that at a great temperature. You can tell, of course, by the glow. And then look how much it's moving when we stop turning. Look at that. So he flattens it with the cork paddles. He's thinking about the evenness of the bubble as he does that too, and how wide the bubble gets. You're starting to see this camera view was really wonderful. Some of the carvings that he carved into this and how that's going to reflect nicely for the piece. Back into the furnace. Now that we have this flattened, you're really going to notice how much a glassmaker turns the pipe. We're never going to really stop turning this pipe the whole time. The only time that really did was just then to flatten the sides. Because we're working on this being in this shape, the pipe was right here. It is right here right now. And so to get it that elongated, we're going to focus on elongating one part at a time. But we also want to do it now. So look at this. He spins that out using centripetal force that wings itself away from that center there and makes those two wings a bit longer. And he can do that as much as he wants to, but to get the shape that he desires through a lot of the processes that he's worked on, working on this body of work, he knows to do this differently, like you'll see in a few moments. We're going to let each side drip on its own. But starting it this way is helpful. Helps it get to the next step. Okay, question online. Those of you online, ask questions and we'll get to you. But I see one in-house. Yeah, what's your question? Do the extreme temperatures affect our eyes? Not necessarily as far as the heat itself. Eyewear is required in the hot shop. So anytime that we're near something hot, this is a really good border for our eyes. So that's really nice. Yeah, so no, not too bad. We often get questions about if the light affects our eyes. When we're close to that furnace, it doesn't look as bright as it does to you all that are away from it. So that pinpoint from where you're sitting, it being smaller, will exacerbate that light a little bit. But we do have an amazing safety team that hires experts to measure the light coming from that and the rays coming from that hole, that reheating chamber. And we passed the test last year of needing further eyewear to be able to work here safely. When we're working through this reheating chamber, and especially because we're here for maybe an hour or two or so throughout the day, it's not too bad. But we also have a small window. I'm going to show you what it looks like over here on this one. This little window right here on the heat shield is made of a cobalt blue glass, which really deadens some of that brightness for us. So we can look through that when we're right there. Yeah, good question. Awesome. Okay, online question. Okay. Hey, G. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I'm going to have to ask Michael that, though. Oh, what's that? A camera inside the oven? How do we get it there? That's a really good question. How we get a camera inside of a 2,000-degree oven? Well, let me tell you, we tricked you a little bit. It's not actually inside of the oven, but this wouldn't be possible without a specific type of glass called fused silica. And fused silica back there is a little window. The camera looks through that window and can see into the oven. And what's so special about that window is it doesn't melt at 2,000 degrees like our glass does. That window actually melts at 4,000 degrees. So you can see through the window, the camera can, it's outside the reheating chamber, through a glass that's pretty heat resistant. Yeah, it's a great view. That's one of my favorite views. You're very welcome. Thanks for asking. Michael, we have a question from online audience member G. Bryan, and he wants. What is the name you want me to call him? Buttersnaps. Okay. Buttersnaps wants to know if you're America's favorite glassblower. He's getting cheers. He says no. He says no, though. Oh, okay. Catherine's in charge of it. We'll have to ask Catherine tomorrow at work when she comes into work. Good question, G. We'll get to the bottom of that one. So we're going to start to do one of three punties. So this is punty number 1. We have a little bit of glass on the end of this iron that's going to be cooled and shaped, then stuck to the bottom of this piece. Then, because the punty's attached, we can break this piece off the blowpipe and then fix the top up. Now, the punty is designed to be broken off as if it wasn't there. That's our intention, is to get that broken off so cleanly that you can't even tell that it was there. But if you look at every single one of these pieces down here on the floor, you'll see a little marking. That's also a good way to tell that a piece of glass is handmade. So watch this. We're going to apply the punty. This is hot enough that it sticks, but not so hot that it fuses forever, and not so hot that it leaves too much of a mark. So Tom cooled it down expertly. He brings it to Michael, who attaches it to the bottom of the piece. And then to get the glass to break, we're going to use that small constriction line. We're going to shock it with a couple drops of water, or even just use steel, but we want to purposefully make the glass so cold that it breaks. Glass, when it's left out from 2,000 degrees, you just leave it on a puddle here on the floor. If it starts to cool down from 1,000 degrees to 900 or 1,000 down to room temperature, eventually that glass will break. So if you want the glass to survive, you must slowly cool it. But we can use that to our advantage to break it right now with a couple drops of water and a light tap. There's the water. And here comes the tap. Beautifully done. Let's give him a big round of applause. Very nicely done. All right, that's transfer, like I mentioned, 1 of 3. Sorry about that. Okay. So then, I haven't mentioned it yet, but to make those sides taller on each side, we're going to add a puntee to this side and then heat that side and elongate it. Then add a puntee to this side, take this one off, and elongate that side. So we're going to add 2 more puntees to this. So this is a very unique shaped piece and a wonderful piece for Michael to show in our Bring the Heat series. A little bit more about the Bring the Heat series. The pieces from last week's are available in the shops and online now. So Eric Goldschmidt, one of our flame workers here at the museum, created some candlesticks and tumblers. And those are still available in the gift shop from the live stream. The pieces that he made are available to buy. So check that out. You can go watch the video, which is now online on our YouTube channel, and then see if you like it. You can buy it. And the demo piece from this piece right here will be sold in the shops and online at shops.cmog.org. So check that out. If you love it, come back and see it online. You can come back in person and see it as well and take it home. And then we'll post a photo of the piece when it's out of the annealer on the shop's Instagram and Facebook too. So you're here viewing this online and in-house, and to see the final piece, check out our Instagram. Check it out tomorrow or the next day. It might take a couple days to come out, I'm not sure. But stay tuned. But this series, the Bring the Heat, shines a spotlight on the expert glassmakers from our Hot Glass Show team, which showcases their creativity and expertise. We have a lot of creative individuals here at the museum. We're very happy to showcase that. And then during each live stream, each Hot Glass team artist will bring to life one of their personal designs, and this is definitely one of those for Michael. Michael's been working on this type of this kind of series of work since his senior thesis show. When he was, after he worked here for a little bit on the ships, he did go ahead and pursue a glassmaking degree at Hastings College in his hometown. They have an amazing glassmaking degree, an amazing hot shop. Very cool. We love Hastings College. And then while he was there doing his senior show, he explored this body of work, making kayak-like shapes out of glass. I've seen pictures of it. I wish we had a picture to show of it. It was pretty dynamic. A lot of the pieces were hung from the ceiling, and you could walk around the space. It was very cool. And so I want to talk a little bit about the concept of this piece. This kayak/boat shape really showcases the individual's journey. The concept grows and changes. It's a bit of a metaphor for personal growth and change. So he did this a few years ago and is still making it today, this time of ice, of a new trip that he was able to, a new part of the world he was able to explore. And so as this grows, it's a bit like how he grows. So very fun. So what's your question? Go ahead. Good question. So our guest noticed that there was an extra one of those grawls in that oven. And that was, I think, probably backup. And the question is, as this shall be finished, what will happen with that other one? I'm not sure. I think he probably will keep it around because, yeah, he engraved it. I think it might just be good to have it because he might make another one. He might be able to make another one. Yeah. And if this is successful, he can make more and more and keep selling them. So that would be cool. Yeah, good question. All right. So we've cleaned the top half of this piece up. Now we're going to work on the sides of the vessel. So puntee number 2 is about to be applied. Puntee number 1 is going to be taken off. What's really fun about this is this becomes quite ergonomical from it being wide like this. We're going to streamline it by attaching this puntee to one of the sides and then using gravity to elongate it. So here comes the glove, because he's going to spend some time there adding the piece to the glass. And I'm going to help out, because he's going to be there. At this point, we want to let this material slow down temperature-wise. We're not really heating any area. We're just letting it kind of chill, but not too chilly. All right, Tom brings this over, and then he's going to work on applying it straight, but then he's going to make sure that when this puntee is applied, that it's easy to add or to break off. So he'll make that constriction line there that you're seeing him make. That's where we're going to break it off. And because he has a chance to work on the other side, he'll work on that side later, he can take that little button off. That's pretty smart. All right. So here we go. And then we'll work on getting this to break free from the puntee. So we're going to add a couple drops of water to that puntee connection, and then a light tap will break it free. Watch. Very nicely done. All right. So now we'll work on that other half. Heat that up with care. So we're not going to just blast it. Keep it inside that oven for a really, really long time. We want to control where we heat the glass. We'll use the torch to do some of that too. Any other questions while we have a chance? Any questions? Okay, cool. All right. So back into the oven. This is a bit more streamlined, so it's not like way off the sides of the pipe. Nice and balanced. Now, we use natural gas down here to fuel our furnaces. That's very common for most glassblowing studios to be fueled by natural gas these days. We also have an all-electric hot shop here on the innovation stage upstairs. And then to put hot shops on cruise ships, we needed also more electric run ovens. So we put those setups on the cruise ships in order for there to not be a big tank of propane or natural gas on a vessel in the middle of the ocean. That's very important. So we developed the all-electric hot shop here at the Corning Museum of Glass. But if you can't use natural gas or electricity, you can use propane for places if you're rural. And if you can't use propane, you could use coal fire. We used coal fire for a long time, about 400, 500 years. There are probably still areas of the world that use coal fire as well. And then before that, we used wood fire. We used wood fire for a long time to heat ovens, about more than 2,000 years to heat ovens full of glass. So glass blowing has been around for a long time. The majority of its heat has been from wood fire. So we return back to the workbench and we start to heat that section that we want to stretch with the torch. And when we want this elongation there, we want to make sure that we don't overheat the tip. We just are heating this inside here. We can keep some of the thickness on that tip. Also, we're punting up to those sides, so we want structure there. So he's being mindful of exactly where he heats this. And again, just like us glassmakers needing experience to make a lot of pieces and make all glass, it took him many tries, and it's been a few years of him working on the same shape and texture and things to really get this moved down as well. It's a really good thing to showcase. And Tom will reheat that for him. It gives Michael a bit of a break. It also helps him formulate thoughts, too, on the next step. You can attach a puntee to it now while it's hot and pull it if you want to, but it's a little bit easier just to use gravity. So we can take it out of the oven and hold it down towards the ground. That will elongate. And we'll get to watch that happen. So you see how that almost doubled in length, holding that down, making it longer. All right, look at that. So you see also the curve of the bottom there, the flatness of the sides. Thinking of the shape of a kayak also really comes through with just that move, just letting gravity do it without us touching it at all. I hear him say he wants to check that it's straight. So he'll straighten the sides. Like I said, it's difficult to make something and then bring it up and change it. It's easier just to do it now. So if you make this and you realize the sides are kind of a bit off, you missed that detail. So it's good to look at all the details now. So look at the sides. And it looks good. So the next step is to do the same thing, but in reverse. All right, so we'll work on that second punny. All right, so Tom's going to bring that over to the table and cool it down again. But he also has to think about how this is going to be applied and what Michael needs it for. So since we are going to apply it and then make that constriction line in the punty itself, that's called sometimes a sculpture punty. He wants to leave a little bit off the end so that there's material to work with. Oh, yes. Say again, please. I'm not sure, actually. Good question. Will we be able to see through the glass when it's done? I'm not sure if it will be transparent. Because he has so many layers built up, I don't think it will be super transparent. Yeah, I think it'll be more like matte. And it's mostly based on the white on the outside, and then there is white on the inside as well. Yeah, so no opaque instead. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it probably won't be transparent. He said he added a little extra blue on the inside when we did that stuff. We stuffed the bubble into that cup so that if it does get blown out or stretched too much, you'll only just see blue come through. And the blue is transparent, but it won't be transparent enough, I think. Yeah, good question. Okay, yep. All right. So the next step is to add this punty on in the same manner. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. All set? Okay. All right, here comes punty number 3, which is the last punty. This will be attached right to the center of the end. He really puts it on there to kind of squish it on, and then he'll make that line and pull it away, or pull it away and then make the line. Okay. So there's that line there. That's our last punty. So when we take this off, there will be a little bit of that left. We will cold work that off, which means we'll use water-fed diamond grinding wheels to cold work that off. All right. So we're ready to break this free. And we'll add, once again, water to that disconnection point there. And then I'll hold some cold shears on there, which will help it break easier. And then a light tap breaks it free. Thank you, thank you. All right, disconnected successfully again. Perfect. We're now going to work on that other side. We're going to remove the extra bit of punty left over. Just makes the work in the cold shop a little less. So yeah, back to the top side. Any other questions at the moment? Yes. To learn when it comes to glass making? Yeah, that's a good question. The question is, are there any techniques or parts of glass making that are more difficult to master than others? Honestly, it's all really hard. There are some things like when you're a beginner, using the table to shape the glass is difficult because it's hard to get that dexterity down. Sometimes when I've taught introductory glassmaking classes, to teach a glassmaker to blow into the pipe and trap their air at the same time, so a bubble will pop out the end, is a difficult day in the class. So there's small things here and there. In the scheme of things, I think most glassmakers could agree that working thin is difficult because the glass gets hotter faster in the oven and colder faster out of the oven. So you have to work fast, work efficiently. Working big can be difficult depending on who you are and what you're working with. So yeah, lots of different things, but those are some overarching themes there. Good question. I like that. Yeah, what's your question? Oh, wait, 1 sec. Yes. It's okay. Yeah, let me do that really fast. I'm going to throw some fracks in the oven. And I'll talk about those when I get back. Fracks is what we use to cushion glass if we're going to lay it down kind of weirdly in an oven. So it's woven glass fibers. And once I bring it up, you'll see how soft it looks, but it's not quite soft to humans. It's made of little bits of glass, but fiber fracks, that's what this looks like. We'll put it into the oven. This will be what we lay the piece down on. So that the piece won't be laying on a hard kiln shelf. Okay. Yeah, it's a little warm over there. Okay, did I see? Oh yeah, your question, yeah. Yeah, how do we add color to the glass? There are many different ways to add color to the glass. A very quick way, is using frit, which is little granules of crushed up glass color. This stuff sticks onto the surface of the material and it melts right in. So if you saw a hot glass show earlier today, you saw us apply this onto the surface and it melted in. What Michael's done so far is add color bar. So we have a few different color bars with different color. So I'll show you this. This is actually a purple, but it's very dense. And then this is kind of a milky white. I do believe he has some of this on this piece. This color bar, you can put it in an oven. heat it up to a temperature to where it will stick to a pipe. You can then bring it out on the pipe, melt it down a bit more, and then you can bring it over to a small bubble and melt that over the small bubble to apply it to the glass. Yeah. But with this stuff, you can pull it into long canes that can be wrapped around a vessel. You can draw with some of those canes. You can marble these colors. You can do so much with color bar. And with frit, you can do all kinds of stuff with lots of color. Yeah, thanks for your question. Very nice. All right, so we've smoothed that glass off of the end. We've cut it off, smoothed it down. Oops, that goes over here. And now we'll work on stretching it again. All right. So Michael has an associate's degree and a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. It's not the only way that you can get involved in glassmaking, but it is a very common method for glassmakers in America. So going to college is what a lot of glassmakers end up doing, but of course it's not required. But he worked here at the Corning Museum of Glass for a while before he pursued that degree, and then I think that was about a 2-year stretch that he just kind of stayed there in Hastings with going for that degree. But he's been working here in the summers at the museum, either in the hot glass show or in the Make Your Own program for 8-9 years or so. And then he's been here at the museum a bit more permanently for the past 3 or 4 years. So it's been really lovely to have Michael. So once again, we're going to start to work that heat into the middle of the piece using that torch. That's a 2,000 degree torch. You see that we have 2 different torches. The 2,000 degree torch, we leave it on as a pilot light to light the other torch, but that's our 2,000 degree one. The smaller torch is a 4,000 degree torch, so it's a much hotter torch. It's been adapted to be used here in the hot shop. It's never really been in the hot shop setting, in this kind of furnace glass setting, but since it has, we've been able to shape and sculpt with that torch in many, many different ways. That's been able to really further the ability of what we can do with glass in the hot shop. So it's a great addition. Now, if we let the glass get too cold, it will crack and it will break. Like I mentioned earlier, glass needs to slowly cool, but even if we neglect to heat it up during this process, we leave it out for too long, it will break. Whenever you see Michael go back to the oven, return that piece to the oven to heat it in a particular spot, he heats the whole thing first, then brings it out and focuses heat on the bottom, or actually the tip of this bubble at this point, which is not really the bottom at all. All right, so going for that stretch. He doesn't hold it down totally at first. He's looking at the way that it's moving, then has full faith in it, holds it down and swings it. The swing's important. That really brings a bit more gravity to the picture. Yeah, your question. Yeah, does the rod get heated up that is attached to the glass? It does. The rods that we work with are made of stainless steel. And stainless steel is a really poor conductor of heat. So that's why we use it. But about a foot away from where that glass is located, it is too hot. So the tip here is preheated to about 1,200 degrees so that it will stick to the pipe or to the glass. And if I walk my hand up to right about here, it feels like a hot cup of coffee. So from here up, I know it's too hot. But also, can you see that it's darker in that section? That's a good visual indicator of don't touch that section there. Glassmakers, it's the first rule. It's the first rule. Is the first thing you learn is how to navigate around the pipe before you start to work with it. Does someone touch the pipe every once in a while in their beginning class? Yeah, someone will do it. But they learn that lesson maybe a little faster than others, or it's just a good lesson to learn. Small burns do happen in a hot shop, but just like anything, if you're watching the amazing athletes at the Olympics, injuries happen, small things happen. But yeah, we avoid that section. So you see, he's swinging this around, but he knows where the heat is, and he's swinging it up here like this to avoid that part of the pipe. The longer that piece gets, the more he's got to hold it up. So he's also thinking about the ergonomics of that. And if it hurts, if he is thinking, oh, this will hurt my shoulder, he won't do it first thing, or he'll hop up on something and give himself some more room to do it. So yeah, always thinking about things like that. Good question. Yeah. All right, this looks really good. We're nearing the end, I think. But one thing I noticed we worked on when we did some of these trial runs is just how even the two sections are. And when doing that, when stretching those sections out, oh, I didn't look. I'll look again. Okay. So we're looking at it again. Well, I think it looks good. Yeah. Do you want me to get the measuring stick? I can. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I think it looks good. You can see just how much care and precision goes into making a piece that's going to go for sale. So he wants it to be perfect. Of course, any glassmaker usually will make pieces that will go for sale, but it's special when we support our shops too. We do have more Bring the Heat demonstrations. So far, we've had Chris Rochelle, and his piece sold right after it was online. It was amazing. And then Eric Goldschmidt's was last week. Coming up is a person named Katie Hubbs. That's me, so I'll have mine. Thank you very much. That's very nice. And then after that, we have Jesse Rassett, who's our lead technician extraordinaire here at the museum. So very looking forward to that as well. I saw a question. Was that you? Yes. Go ahead. Is carpal tunnel a common problem with glassmakers? Yes. Yeah, totally. Tennis elbow, tendinitis is the big one. Those are the injuries that we have to be very mindful about. Over burns, cuts, scrapes, things like that is how our body feels. Injuries do happen in that sense more than they do in getting burned. So yeah, these days I have a wonderful advocate in my corner. My brother's an athletic trainer, so I just ask him all my 100 questions about how to stretch and how to prepare for the day. We have the ability to, think about those things nowadays because there's more information available on that, but yoga helps, and stretching your wrists before you start the day will help too. Yeah, yoga's great for glassmakers because we do this all day, and our back is doing this. So we need to do this, some other times in our lives to undo the twisting that we do for our 9-to-5 job. Okay, so I'm going to jump in and help out and suit up and take this piece to the annealer. So I'll become a bit distracted, but that's okay. We can talk again after the show too. So I'm going to put this into a 960-degree oven, and I'm going to hold this piece in my arms. So I want to protect my hands, my arms, my shoulders, my face, my hair. If this was a really big piece, I can put a little more on, but this is going to be plenty for this. So here comes a fire-resistant hoodie. I'm going to put a shield over my hooded head, and then pick out some gloves. So these are Kevlar gloves. This is what our firefighters wear. I'm ready to go. Oh yeah, I shouted them out. I'll shout out again. All the shout out to our people back home in Hastings and in Nebraska. mom, dad, brother, sister, and friends of Michael's all watching at home. Can't forget, it's just like the Olympics, yeah. I agree. Shout out to the people that make us us. Okay. Right.
I think so, yeah.
All right, so
Just a short flash here.
we have some drama because the punty connection is really hot. So it's moving around. And what we want is to cut that. So Tom's really working hard because that glass is moving fast in that section, which means we've got all that weight doing what it wants to do. And here we go. We'll just cut it free. There we go. Both sides. Safe and sound on its comfy Frax bed. And let's give it up for Michael Beahm, everybody. Tom Ryder. Also, big shout out to Alexis on camera. I believe Jason's up mixing, and Emily for social media coverage. Thank you all so much for joining us today at the museum. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll chat. But otherwise, those of you online, thank you for joining us, and have a great night. Thanks, everyone.